But let's go ahead and jump right in. I've got a shared screen here. We're going to look at the mock draft right from the start. I've already got some big news at the top of this because right now the number one pick is going to the Tennessee Titans, who need help everywhere except for quarterback. Cam Ward, number one pick last year. They seem to be covered there. And I think there's going to be enough demand from these QB needy teams at the top that there's going to be a trade right at the very top of the order. And in fact, I see it being the New York Jets, who I think are going to trade their sixth pick, their 23rd pick, and then their middle 2027 first round pick to the Titans to move up to number one. The Jets are flush with capital, right? They just traded away Quinnen Williams. They traded away Sauce Gardner. They collected a bunch of draft capital, and they said, it's time to make a move. And you might be saying, well, why would you move up from 6 to 1? You've already got the 6th pick in the draft. I think NFL football, the quarterback is the most important position of anywhere on the team, and it's the most highly correlated to a team's success. So you've got to get this right. Even if there's holes in the roster everywhere, you want to say, oh, you want to have as many players as you can that are good players. I understand that rationale, but if you really, really want to win big, you've got to have the right quarterback. And I think the Jets, with the capital that they have available right now, are going to be willing to do that. So number one, the Jets trade. They trade up. The Titans move down to number 6. The Jets trade up to number 1. I am going to go ahead and with that first pick, the most important pick of the entire draft, go with Dante Moore, quarterback out of Oregon. Again, some more disclaimers on this one. A lot of people say Dante Moore is definitely going back. I can respect that. It says that his family, his agent, are already telling people, hey, he's going to go back to college for another year. But keep in mind this. If you're going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and the Jets, talk to him in advance of the draft and say, hey, we want you to go number 1. You're going to get a big payday, probably $25-30 million for that rookie contract over 5 years to play in the NFL. That might be hard to turn down. And then also keep in mind 2027, if he does go back to school, it's seeming like it's going to be a pretty packed quarterback class, right? You've already got Arch Manning in the discussion. You've already got Lenora Sellers from South Carolina in the discussion. There's no guarantees that that if Dante comes back to school and goes out in 2027, no guarantees he's even going to be a first-round pick. Certainly not the number 1 pick overall. So I think all of that considered is enough to convince him to go into the 2026 draft. And the Jets, more than anything, need a quarterback right now, need the right franchise quarterback. Moore is poised under pressure. He's athletic, pinpoint accuracy, good under stress and pressure. I think he's all the things that the Jets need. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Dante Moore as number 1 pick to the New York Jets. Number 2, look at this, another trade. We've got the Giants on the clock at number 2. We know that they already have their quarterback with Jackson Dart too. I'm not aware of another draft where we've seen the top 2 picks get traded, but it feels like it makes sense this year because in addition to Dante Moore, I only see there only being one other startable NFL pro level quarterback that's ready to go in this draft. And I think that the Cleveland Browns are willing to trade up just a couple of spots to grab that second quarterback. Again, the Browns have got Shedeur Sanders there. They got Dylan Gabriel there. They drafted both of them last year. There's certainly a case to be made that Shedeur is showing signs of improvement. Maybe even Deshaun Watson, who, has been injured all year since re-aggravating his ACL tear in January. Maybe he's going to come back and play a couple of games next year, but I still do not think that the Browns have this figured out yet. And again, if Kevin Stefanski wants to stay in his job and the Browns want to win some games this year, they've got to get the most important position figured out. They can't just hack it with a second round or a third or a fifth round draft pick that's going to be their starting quarterback. I think you've got to go all in on this one. And so I have Cleveland trading their number 5 pick, and then also their number 26 pick, and then also a 2027 second rounder to the Giants to move up 3 spots to number 2. And again, it's a little bit of a premium. You always have to pay a little bit of a premium to move up. I think Cleveland is willing to do it because, again, you don't want to kind of get stuck there in the QB3 ranks of the draft. You don't want to have a starter that's good, but it's not your guy that you want to be your franchise QB. I think this makes sense. They've got some collected picks that they got anyway from last year with the trade with the Jaguars. I think they're going to trade their 2 first rounders this year, and the next year's second rounder, the Giants move number 2. And by the way, the Giants are very eager to trade down as well. They're a team that likes to collect draft capital, especially in this draft. And so Cleveland moves up to number 2. I think they're going after I think they're going after Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. I mean, this guy's been amazing all year. He's led, Indiana to a really, really good record already. Just knows how to win games, has poise in the pocket. He's a big quarterback, 6'5", I believe, really good accuracy again, a very high IQ quarterback that kind of reads all of the different progressions and all levels of the field. I think that he's going to be a good fit for the Browns. And his composure is going to fit the kind of conservative offense that they like to run there. So I'm going to go with Fernando Mendoza, number 2 to the Cleveland Browns via a trade with the New York Giants. Number 3, my New Orleans Saints. My goodness, we need a lot of help this year. I might be the last remaining Saints fan that is out there after the season that they've been having. One thing that we have seen with the Saints, though, is a lot of progress with Tyler Shuck, right? Second-round draft pick last year in 2024. Obviously, Kellen Moore is coming in as the head coach, former quarterback himself, really big on quarterback development. A lot of eyebrows being raised. In fact, perhaps mine as well, when they drafted Tyler Shuck, who I believe was 25 years old at the time he was drafted. I'd been an extended stint in college. I went through some injuries and some other concerns about him. But I think he is showing enough to be the starting quarterback for this team next year, and not necessary for the Saints to draft a QB at number 3, especially when you see Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza already off the board. So this opens up the Saints the flexibility to draft the best non-quarterback player in the entire draft. And even though you see Rueben Bain there at the top of the PFF rankings on this chart, I think the pick they're going to go with is going to be Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State. He was listed at the beginning of the season. In fact, I think he's still listed right now as an off-ball linebacker, kind of a middle linebacker that can chase down the run, also chase the quarterback. I fully expect him to follow the same footsteps that Micah Parsons did, transition to an edge linebacker, an edge rusher on the outside that can also play inside as needed with the Saints. Brandon Staley comes in, he came from the Chargers, past history working with Kellen Moore before he runs a 3-4. So you got 3 up front, and then you got kind of the 4 linebackers behind him. I think Arvell Reese can line up at a lot of different of those positions. It's kind of the juice that the Saints need to revitalize this aging defense that's not showing a whole lot of pass rush and has really had trouble against the run. So Arvell Reese, perfect solution for what the Saints need right now. I have him going number 3. Oh my, the Las Vegas Raiders at the 4th pick. They could go a bunch of different directions right here. The Raiders are one of those teams that just need a lot of help, right? Pete Carroll came in with a lot of motivation and ambition and excitement. You've got Tom Brady now as a minority owner in the team. People thought that Geno was going to work magic for the Raiders this year, and it just didn't work at all. He's throwing way too many interceptions. He's holding onto the ball too long. He's getting sacked a lot. The offense just looks dysfunctional. And whereas a lot of people have got a lot of finger pointing on why that is happening and why the Raiders have got so many issues, you could point at lack of receiving talent. You could point at the offensive line, not blocking well enough. I think that there is a legitimate claim that Geno is the biggest part of this problem of the Raiders offense right now. And if Pete Carroll wants to keep his job, I think that you have to go with the quarterback in the 4th pick here before your fans, burn the stadium down. Now, you're not going to be excited that Dante and Fernando are both off the board already, but I do think that you've got an intriguing prospect, with Ty Simpson there on the board. Ty Simpson, in my opinion, is not a startable NFL quarterback yet. I don't think he's gotten enough experience in the 1 year that he's played as a starter at Alabama. Certainly, he is a cerebral quarterback. He understands the game. His father was a coach. He sat behind some good quarterbacks at Alabama and learned a lot of things. But I just think that jump from college to the pros is going to be a little bit difficult for him, even though I do expect he probably will declare this year. And I just think that the Raiders, even though this isn't what I would personally do, I think that they're going to have to draft a quarterback here. And they didn't have enough capital to compete with the Jets and the Browns, who offered superior deals to move up to 1 or 2. So I think this kind of gets them stuck. I'm going to have the Raiders draft Ty Simpson at number 4, knowing that there are a lot of problems with this team. It's going to be probably another difficult season for them in 2026, but at least you've got a good quarterback that understands the game, that can play through the progressions and see the field. I think Ty Simpson is a good first step, but let's not expect this is going to be a miracle first year for him in the NFL. Okay, the Giants traded down to number 5 with the Browns. They're now back on the clock again. I think this is a good position for them. Again, they don't really need a quarterback nor an edge rusher. We know that if you're picking at the very top of the draft, with the rookie contracts being what they are, you tend to see those premium positions like a QB, like an offensive lineman, like an edge rusher going. It doesn't seem like, with the exception of right tackle, the Giants need any of those premium positions right now. And so they trade down and they still get the player that they want at number 5, which is Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. Again, somebody who can play kind of all over the field, right? They can play in the slot, they can play the nickel, they can play in the box. Is definitely a willing tackler anywhere on the field. He can go out there and tackle tight ends and running backs too. He's not just running, the safety position. And again, we keep hearing Caleb Downs described as a high IQ player. His brother Josh Browns is a wide receiver out there in the NFL already. He just understands the game very, very well. I think that this is the player that the Giants need to fix their secondary, knowing they've got the front 7, pretty solid. They got some really good edge rushers up there. Defense is pretty strong. They really have trouble with the run still, but I don't know if that's a problem with the defensive line so much as linebackers. I think Caleb Downs makes a lot of sense here at number 5. So we're going to send him out there to the Giants. And again, the second team that traded down, now we've got the Titans on the clock at number 6. They traded down with the Jets, who moved up to the number 1 spot. And the Titans kind of also, I've got a great scenario here that they didn't need a quarterback. You saw 3 quarterbacks go off the board in the first 4 picks. And now that opens up the draft class for them to pick who they want. And I think right there at the top, Rueben Bain is perfect fit for the Titans here. They really need edge support, with Jeff Simmons up there. Jeffrey Simmons as the defensive lineman, tends to play on the interior, more of a 3-tech than an edge rusher. But Rueben Bain, he's got the juice. This is a guy that just kind of brings it every single play. Really good off the numbers charts for pass rush efficiency. I think he's the missing piece that the Titans have been missing for defense as they start to rebuild this team. And again, why did Mike Borgonzi, the GM, trade down? He says he wants to have 12 top 100 draft picks during the next 3 years. To do that, you're going to have to collect some draft capital. This is a great year to do that. And they still get arguably the best player they would have picked anyway at number 1 with Rueben Bain Jr., the edge rusher out of Miami. Number 7, we're going to the Arizona Cardinals, another team that has got a lot of question marks. And again, here we are. This is December 5th, 2025. We haven't even seen the rest of the season play out. We haven't seen the rest of the NFL season play out. We don't know what the order is going to look like. We don't know what free agency is going to look like. We don't know if Kyler Murray is going to be returning as a quarterback of the Cardinals. Feels like there's a lot of tension going on between him and the front office there. And I just don't know if he's the right guy for them as QB. But he's still contractually tied to the team. I think we give him 1 more year to work things out as the quarterback, as a signal caller. But the Cardinals have a lot of other needs. The most pressing, without a doubt, is the right tackle. Jonah Williams, has been there for a long time. They signed a rookie deal several years ago, but really has struggled with injuries the entire time. He's now a free agent at the end of the year. I do not expect them to re-sign him. And that just leaves this gaping void at right tackle. And it opens up the Cardinals. You don't want to draft too much based on need. You don't want to go out there and just say, oh, we have to have a right tackle, so we're going to use our 7th pick for it. But generally, if you look back at the history of the NFL draft, the top tackle on the board tends to go in the top 10 picks. And I think it's Spencer Fano this year. The guy out of Utah. Let's see if I can find him. Here he is right down at the bottom. The 21 ranked player on PFF's board, typically going off of the board a little bit lower, in the mid-teens, at least for the mock drafts that they typically see out there. I think he's the right fit, though, for the Cardinals. If you're the Cardinals and you want to start rebuilding your offense, you've got some weapons. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr. out there who's continuing to develop. We know the Cardinals love to run the ball. We know that Paris Johnson's a pretty good left tackle, even though he struggled a couple times this year. I think Spencer Fano's a right person on the right-hand side. If you want to rebuild a team, you've got a premium pick. You can do a lot worse than finding a really good bookend tackle that can be your starter for the next 5 years, maybe 10 years, even if you keep him around. So Spencer Fano, I'm going with them to the Cardinals at number 7. I think it's the right pick for this team right now. Washington Commanders at number 8, another team that I love. Just they bring it every single week, right? You've got between their quarterback and their coach and just the culture of this team, just a complete rebuild of the Commanders. And they want to go and they want to win every single game, right? If you see them playing, you can just see that they're bringing their A game and they're ready every time they take the field. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this going forward. You have a lot of holes they need to fix in the roster, But again, Jaden Daniels is not one of them. This is a team that I think is very, very good. You saw what they played against the Broncos the other week. Marcus Mariota, even the backup quarterback, they were there to win that game. Even though they ultimately lost at the very end of it, they still, you can see the fire in their eyes. And you like that because culture is not always an easy thing to have or to fix in an NFL team. But you got to be rooting for the Commanders this year. They're here at number 8. Again, they've got a lot of options. If you look at the board, you could argue that they want to go with a playmaker, a wide receiver, a skill position, maybe a running back, even at this pick, just to bring some additional octane to that offense and really kind of give Jaden Daniels some weapons. But I think that more than anything, they're probably going to go with an edge rusher here. If you've watched Washington's defense, it just doesn't have that sense of urgency of going after and pinning your ears back and going after the quarterback. I think they need that. Typically, they run kind of a 3-4. You've got kind of 3 guys up front, and then you got the outside linebackers rather than the defensive ends on the edge. And I think that's going to really draw them to one player in this draft more than anyone else, which is David Bailey, the edge from Texas Tech, highly productive. I got a transfer from Tech. I believe he came from Stanford, if it wasn't California. A high IQ edge rusher, really brings it every play. He's got that same mentality. You just want to root for this guy. You want to cheer for him. And again, he's got a ton of sacks. He's already pulled together more than a dozen sacks in the season, in the college football season. The right guy, highly productive in the position that they need more than anything. I think he's probably the right fit for the Commanders. And keeping in mind, I've looked at a lot of different players in that pick for the Commanders. This is a little bit new to me to go with Bailey here. Seeing Jordan Tyson still there, seeing Peter Wood still there, seeing even guys like Keldrick Fox still there. But I'm going to go with David Bailey. I think he's probably more than anything the right position, the right player, and the right culture for the team. Okay, LA Rams are on the clock here at number 9. How are the Rams drafting at number 9? My goodness. I mean, this is a team that might win the Super Bowl this year. Matthew Stafford is just lights out every week, playing at an MVP level. You got Sean McVay, a fantastic football coach, loves good quarterbacks. The Rams have got receiving weapons. Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua are there. You got Verse and Fisk on the defensive line that are putting a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. They've got a lot of pieces in place. Rob Havenstein, though, the right tackle, is getting a little older. I believe he's in his early 30s, maybe 32 years old right now. That has been one area of weakness, right tackle. And if you're going to go for the Super Bowl again next year, assuming Stafford comes back, which I think he will, he's under contract for one more year in 2026. A lot of people are saying, draft a quarterback, bring in the heir apparent for Matthew Stafford here with the number 9 pick. I don't see that so much. I think it's a better move right here to go after a dependable player that can lock down your offensive line, especially protect Matt. Matt's had some back injuries that he's been dealing with here recently. You do not want to take a bad sack just because you could have invested in the offensive line to protect him. And so I'm gonna jump down a little bit. I'm going to go to the 23rd ranked player on the PFF boards. That's Francis Mauigoa, the right tackle from Miami. Been solid all season. Not the biggest guy, but has got good technique. Very dependable right tackle. I think he's the right player for the Rams at this point in time, being that they've got the 9th pick. They tend to do well in the skill positions later in the draft. The Rams got Puka later on in the draft. They got their running backs and their safeties. Kind of a lot of these players that are really good on the team. They kind of draft later rounds. But I think that when it comes to a tackle, you take a tackle at the number 9th pick if you have the opportunity. Francis Mauigoa is a good fit for the Rams here. Number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals, another team that could use a lot of help in a lot of different places. Offensive line is certainly under consideration right here. Joe Burrow, my goodness, bringing the spark that has the potential to even somehow get the Bengals into the playoffs this year. You can just see the energy that he's brought to the team, the motivation, the ambition that he's brought has been fantastic. And the offense is in pretty good shape for Cincinnati. They have been entirely unable to bring any pass rush and any run stuffing at all this year. You just see running backs unnecessarily getting 6-7 yards on first down over them. You say, gosh, tackle the guy. Why can't you fix this? Put some good linebackers in there, put some good run stuffers on the line. They've actually overinvested in edge rushers in recent years. Not only Trey Hendrickson, which they got from a trade, but also their own picks, Shamar Stewart last year that they pulled in for the edge. He's been injured this year. They just haven't gotten it figured out. And the defense is dysfunctional right now. I think that you have to address that. And luckily for Cincinnati, they do see Peter Woods there, the defensive interior lineman, right there at the top of the draft. The number 4 ranked player, at least by the big board. And, you're getting a good value on that for position need for the Bengals. There's certainly arguments to be made that they could take someone in the secondary. They could take a linebacker. But I think if you're going to get a really good player right in the middle of the defensive line, plays that 3 tech, can stuff the run, also brings some pass rushing too, you're kind of addressing a lot of your issues with one single player with this. So I'm going to go with Peter Woods, number 10 to the Bengals. I'll take a moment to drink some coffee here as we see the Vikings coming up, which again, I've got a lot of different directions that this team can go. We know that the NFC North is very competitive. You've got the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions breathing down their neck. And they've seen kind of some subpar play from J.J. McCarthy, right? A lot of people were expecting after the ACL tear that he had last year that he finally takes the field here. And the first couple of games of his NFL career hasn't been kind of what you would expect, or at least I think what the Vikings were expecting they were going to get with their quarterback here. And so there's already chirps and rumors going out there that, yeah, they're going to look for another quarterback this year. I don't think so. I think that JJ is going to certainly get at least another couple of years to prove himself. But in the meantime, I think they're going to have to address that they're going to need to support him, right? Justin Jefferson, great. Jordan Addison, great. Good receivers out there. But Aaron Jones getting a little bit long in the tooth, a little bit older now. He's past 30 years old. We haven't seen really. He's okay. He's doing a pretty good job, all things considered. But I just think a quarterback's best friend is a good running back that is going to scare, the box. Is going to get defensive linebackers have to respect that at any time he can take off and blast you for 30 yards like Saquon did with the Eagles. If you do that and you have an offense with a running back that is capable of doing that, and defenses have to address it, kind of opens up those receivers like Addison and like Jefferson out there. So I'm going with Jeremiah Love at number 11 to the Vikings. Some people are saying he's going to go earlier than 11, and some mocks are saying it's going to go much later than 11. Some people are even saying Jeremiah Love might even fall out of the first round. We do know that he is a playmaker. Running back is not typically a position that gets drafted at the very top of the draft. It's a skill position. It's important, but maybe not this high. But I think with the Vikings, all things considered and looking at the board there, you do have Jamon McCoy. You could go cornerback. You could go Mansour Delane if you wanted to help the secondary. But I'm going to give Jeremiah Love to J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings because they're going to have to put a lot of points on the board this year. They're going to compete in the NFC North. Miami Dolphins, again, another team that has a lot of needs right now. A lot of questions about the quarterback position, questions about is Tyreek Hill coming back. The culture is kind of messed up there. We don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to be around for another year as a coach. We saw them just doing some turnover in the GM right now. A lot of things need fixing with the Miami Dolphins. So they could go in a bunch of different directions on this one too. It's actually kind of surprising they are at the 12th pick right now with a decent record. But again, you've got to start rebuilding this team. And I'm going to go with Mansour Delane just because when I've watched the Dolphins games, they just are unable of covering in the secondary. There's just so many just 10-yard passes that just, first down. They just get grilled and they're getting lit up over the league this year. What is it? 25 points a game they're giving up, 250 passing yards a game they're allowing, something like that in that neighborhood. I think that you could put more resources to the front line, but they did draft Kenneth Grant last year out of Michigan. Hasn't performed to expectations, but I don't think you overinvest in the line at this point. I'm going to go with Mansour Delane, a very, very dependable cornerback out of LSU. Probably a good building block piece for a team that could use a lot of help in the secondary, especially as a man cover, not just zone coverage, but man-to-man, press corner that can stop those short passes that keep tearing them up this year. 13, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, another team that you could see going a bunch of directions, right? People are saying, why is Mahomes, taking sacks this year? Why are you putting so much pressure on him? We need to give him another receiving option. We need to open up the field. I think the thing with the Chiefs, though, is that defenses are just adapting to the speed that they want to see on the offense, right? It used to be all about Tyreek Hill, and then you bring in the guy from Texas, open up the field too. The Chiefs want to run down the field and let Mahomes air it out. Right? That's what you want to see them doing. But it's not what defenses want to happen. And so what they do is they just put two safeties high. They shut down the long pass. They force the Chiefs to run the ball, which isn't working because Kareem Hunt just doesn't have any gas left in the tank. And Isaiah Pacheco is hurt most of the time. So you get him kind of showing these, dink and dunk 5-10 yard passes, which isn't at all what Mahomes wants to do. But so be it. We're not going to solve the world's problems with that. It's just that defenses have gotten smarter to the Chiefs offense, and that's why they're not scoring as many points this year. And so I'm going to see them address the other need that they have on this team, which is the edge. I think that I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk from Auburn to the Chiefs at number 13. We know that Spags likes to run a 4-3. He likes these powerful bull rushing defensive ends as opposed to faster, outside linebackers. I think Falk is kind of the right player that can kind of, put his fist into the ground and run over an offensive tackle. That's kind of what they want to do. You put him next to Chris Jones, and all of a sudden you got some really, really good power on that front line for the Chiefs. I think that's what they want to achieve. Kind of bring down the number of points that your opponents are scoring, knowing that the Chiefs offense has not been up to the level that it has been, at least in recent Super Bowl winning years. And I think this is a good year to address the defense. It'll also be nice if they get Josh Simmons back from injury and kind of personal time that he's had off the field this year. Kind of a left tackle. They need to see him out there protecting Mahomes a little bit better. Moving on to number 14, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock here, and I'm going to go with Carnell Tate on this one. I'm not going to overthink it. You've got DK Metcalf they brought in, through a trade. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be next year. Probably not Aaron Rodgers, though, but whoever it's going to be, I think they're going to pick somebody up in the free agent market, maybe a trade in the offseason. Mac Jones kind of gets thrown around as one of those players that might go, veteran out there that to a team that needs one. The Steelers, with the Kenny Pickett experience, don't do well drafting quarterbacks in the middle of the first round. I think that Carnell Tate is a better fit for them right here. Very, very dependable receiver, lines up next to Jeremiah Smith, at Ohio State. Smith is a phenomenal receiver. He's almost kind of overshadowed how good Carnell Tate is in many ways, but Carnell just catches every pass you throw to him. And I think that's probably what the Steelers need, is a dependable number 2 target. I'm going to send Carnell Tate to the Steelers at number 14. Carolina Panthers on the clock at number 15 here. Again, lots of different directions they can go. We have seen a lot from Bryce Young. I've been very impressed with his development, not only in the way that he's reading the progressions, seeing all the field. He airs it out. He's not afraid to throw the ball. He's got Tedderone McMillan this year, which has been fantastic. Now he's got a weapon to throw to. He's also getting a lot of help from his running backs. I don't think anybody expected Rico Dowdle to be performing at the level that he is at Carolina. I don't think their own team and their own front office expected him to be as good as he is. But that has really helped the team offensively in a lot of ways. And I think that if you can complement that with another weapon on the outside for the Panthers, that's going to really, really be good for Bryce Young and also help this team, which is outperforming expectations, I might say, this year. Defense to me looks fine. A lot of people are saying you need another edge rusher out there. You got Nick Scorton last year. Maybe they do, but I think that to me, the Panthers defensive line, especially with Derek Brown back right there in the middle of the defensive interior, is looking pretty good. I think you go after offense right here. I think that when you see Jordan Tyson still on the board at 15, you have to take him. Wide receiver out of Arizona State, a guy that can play both the X receiver or in the slot if you want him to. I think the only reason he's available at 15 here in my mock draft is because of the injuries, right? He has missed almost 40% of his games of his college career due to injuries, lingering injuries, whether it be for his leg, I believe it was his collarbone not too long ago, a guy that can't always stay on the field, but when he is there, he's fantastic. And I think probably the only reason you even see him available at 15 for the Panthers is teams don't really want to invest a top 10 pick into a receiver that's been injured as often as he has. But the Panthers, man, you've got Tet right there. You got a big body receiver with him. I think you pair him with Jordan Tyson. That's going to just unlock another element of this offense. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going to have Carolina go Jordan Tyson, number 5 as wide receiver. Number 15 as their wide receiver. Dallas Cowboys on the clock here at number 16. Again, Jerry Jones, respect to him, making some changes in the offseason, making a big trade. Debatable whether he made the right decision with Michael Parsons and losing probably the best edge rusher in the NFL to the Packers. Parsons is already competing at a very high level up there in Green Bay. It's left a void at the edge out there. You did bring in Quinnen Williams. We know that Jerry Jones hates that the Cowboys have been getting run over. It seems like he's fixed the run problem with Williams right there as the interior defensive lineman. But they're still having problems tackling in space. You still see a lot of plays where the Cowboys are getting lit up for these short yardage gains that are just like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? We saw last night with the Lions. It was just to be fair, the Lions have got a fantastic offensive line and they've got fantastic running backs and they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown that's going to light up any deep team that he's playing against. But it just felt like, Dallas just needs some kind of interior defensive presence to elevate its team. It just needs to be faster to get to the ball, to get to tackles, stop giving up all these plays to opposing offenses. And I think that Sonny Styles is the right player that's going to fix that. Sonny Styles is a Mike. He's a middle linebacker. He was previously a safety, so he's got some speed in his legs and an ability to tackle. He doesn't miss tackles. I don't believe he's missed a single tackle all year for Ohio State. You can't say that about anybody else in college football, but this middle linebacker is going to get it done. As soon as he sees the ball out and he's going for a receiver, he's going to be the guy that's going to be there to tackle it. Also really good against the run. And I just think he's the right player to fix this struggling defense that the Cowboys have had. This is a priority for Jerry Jones. And that Jerry's going to be calling the shots on draft day here. I think he's going to invest in one more first-round draft pick for the defense. Sonny Styles is going to be the number 16 pick to the Cowboys. Speaking of the Lions and how good they looked last night, Detroit is now on the clock at number 17. And again, a lot of reasons why they might be here, not making the playoffs, at least in the order right now on the Tankathon rankings, which spells out at this point of the season, they're at the 17th pick. Why are the Lions not going to the Super Bowl? They've got a banged up offensive line. They've got a fantastic offense that's scoring a lot of points, but also they've had struggles in the secondary. They need a second edge rusher to complement Aiden Hutchinson. There's just kind of some things that are not completely clicking. I'm not sure it's a bad roster that the team has. It's just that something isn't quite getting from good team to playoff or Super Bowl winning team. And so I'm going to kind of go after the position of need for them on this one. Keeping in mind there's some intriguing prospects you see there at the top of the board that are still available. Perhaps Cassius Howell or TJ Parker would be the most popular pick at this point to pair with Aiden as the edge, because we know that the Lions have talked about that a lot. But I'm going to move down a little bit down the board and do something a little bit surprising. I don't think I see a lot of other mocks doing this, but I'm going to go with Caden Proctor out of Alabama. Left tackle, massive man, 370 pounds, 6'7" tall, just a people mover that even with just a little bit of pro level conditioning could be the best left tackle in the NFL. And you put him with Penei Sewell on the right-hand side, and all of a sudden you've got the strongest bookends in the league with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery behind you and Jared Goff, high IQ quarterback. I mean, this could be, I would already consider the Lions, a top 3 offense in the entire league today, but just elevate that even higher. If you can kind of put a very strong left tackle to replace Taylor Decker, who's getting a little older and has been injured this year. Even if Decker comes back, I think that Caden Proctor can play multiple positions. I think you can play guard if you want with him. His footwork is not fantastic or elite. He's just really big and he's got good technique. Not the fastest offensive tackle that you'll see out there, but a good fit for a team that's got basically 4 linemen right now that are either missing time or have missed significant time in this past of the season. So Caden Proctor, based on need for the Lions, knowing that they've got a pretty strong roster, but they just need that second piece to go into the playoffs. Houston Texans, hometown Houston Texans, number 18. Again, another team that I think needs a lot of work on the offensive line. Oliavega Ione. Gosh, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. I apologize. But the best interior offensive lineman out of Penn State, kind of the consensus number 1 guard in this class. That's what the Texans need. The Texans traded away Tunzel, which I believe was a mistake to the Commanders. You lost Kenyon Green, I believe it was to the Eagles a couple of years ago. They've got a good team, but just CJ Stroud is taking too many hits, and you can't have your franchise quarterback getting hurried and getting sacked and getting hit that often. He did go into the concussion protocol, not from a hit, but from a slide, a quarterback rush. But you've got to protect that guy. And I think that this is the right draft pick for them. Again, a guy that's going to line up probably on the inside, but that's where the Texans need the most help right now. So I have him going to number 18 to the Texans. Again, apologies for the pronunciation. The Ravens at number 19. Again, a team that could go a lot of different directions. Edge rushing is probably the number one need that they have. You would suggest Cassius Howe would fit in right away in the 3-4 scheme that they run, which would make sense to me. But again, the Ravens are a physical team. They want to win the line of scrimmage. I think that edge rusher, even though they're bottom 5 in the NFL in sacks, I think that Caden McDonald from Ohio State, the nose tackle, is going to fit this scheme, this 3-4 scheme. The guy right in the middle is going to line up right over the center, breathing right down his neck, can jam up those running lanes on both sides, on the left and the right. You've got a division that's wide open right now in the AFC North. The Ravens look as competitive as anyone out there. You've still got Lamar Jackson, not playing at the same level he did last year, but no one can say that Lamar Jackson is not still one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. And of course, Derrick Henry and the other receivers that they've got are pretty good offense. I think they're going to invest this pick in defense, knowing that just like we said about the Lions, something's just not clicking for the Ravens, even with a team that has a pretty good roster. So Ken McDonald, again, probably one of the best run stuffers in this class. A nose tackle, he's going to line up right in the middle of defensive interior. Really strong, powerful defensive lineman. I see him going to the Ravens at number 19. Number 20, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is another one that could go a bunch of different directions. Todd Bowles, not only the head coach, but the defensive coordinator of the team, is going to be looking for a defensive player, I think, in the first round of this draft. Perhaps a wide receiver to pair with Agbuka outside. We know that Mike Evans has suffered from some injuries. So has Chris Godwin. They could probably use a second wide receiver, but I'm going to have him going with Cassius Howe from A&M out on the edge here at number 20. Just watching the Bucs, who are my rivals in the NFC South, they have a decent offense, but there's something lacking on defense. And I think that Howe, who's been very productive with the Aggies this year, I think is the right fit for the Bucs. It does personally pain me a little bit that I am a Saints fan trying to improve the Buccaneers, who are my primary rival in the NFC South. And then I'm also a University of Texas alum who is picking a Texas A&M graduate to go to the Buccaneers. I will withhold comment on that one, but I think it's the right pick for the Buccaneers here at number 20. Buffalo Bills at number 21. We're getting down to the end of the first round here. Again, this is one that you don't overthink. They could use a run-stuffing interior linebacker, which is probably the biggest need for them right now, but they invested so heavily in the defense of last year's draft. I think they're going to turn their eyes to offense. Mekhi Lemon is sitting right there, still available at 21. Just didn't seem like the right fit for a lot of other teams. Obviously a very talented player, probably going to line up in the slot, a very, very fast route runner, kind of a guy that's going to open up the field for Josh Allen, who's got the cannon arm, and he's still got his receivers that's going to play the role for. This is going to be more of, the 10-yard pass to move the sticks. I think Mekhi Lemon is going to be a good fit here for the Bills at number 21. 22, the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, a team that's got a good, efficient offense, but has had some problems with the offensive line. Lane Johnson specifically has been having some injury concerns at right tackle. And so I'm going to move down a little bit here, down the draft board to the 36th ranked player on the PFF board, Jennings Dunker from Iowa, the state I was born in. The Hawkeyes, right tackle, just a mauler. His fourth year, a guy that just is going to open up running lanes, going to do exactly what Saquon Barkley needs him to do, and also fill in some depth for that offensive line that needs it because of the injury issues that have been plaguing the Eagles all season. This is a fun guy to watch. If you see him play a game, he's just a guy that loves what he does. Kind of like a Tate Ratledge. If you guys remember Tate Ratledge in the previous year, even though Jennings Dunker is more of a tackle, I think he's the right player that the Eagles will need for some depth to the offensive line. Could probably move inside the guard too, based on his physique and his measurables. We'll go Dunker number 22 to the Eagles. That brings back the Titans back on the clock for number 23. Again, this was the pick that they traded with the Jets, which the Jets inherited from the Colts. So kind of a little bit of a handing off of this 23rd pick ultimately lands up with the Titans. If we did have the Titans picking Rueben Bain there at number 6, I'm going to have them go with Jermon McCoy here at number 23. Again, the only reason Jermon McCoy is even available at this point is because of the injury risk. He's not going to play a single snap in college football this year. He's been out with an ACL tear all year. He was fantastic the previous year. Just showed some really good tape. But I think that he's still available because everyone worries about an ACL tear with your lockdown cornerback. But, again, a press corner, a guy that can open up, Rueben Bain to blitz more because he's going to have man coverage right there at the line of scrimmage, and really, put a lot of pressure on those wide receivers and the routes that they're running. I think he's the right pick for the Titans. They go 2 for 2 in the first round on defense. Jermon McCoy to Tennessee at 23. 24, San Francisco 49ers, a team that has had so many injury concerns this year, so many players out, yet they still find ways to win. Fantastic that Kyle Shanahan has done what he's done with what he has this year. And this kind of opens them up for a lot of different positions. I'm going to go with Caleb Lomu. Again, jumping down the board a little bit on this one. The left tackle from Utah, Trent Williams, is the starting left tackle for the 49ers. And as long as he's healthy, he will be the starter because he is amazing. But, he's probably only going to have one more year. And I think Lomu is going to be the swing tackle again for this year. Is a Colton McKivitz, the right tackle for the 49ers, has played at a very high level too, opens up those lanes. 49ers have got a good roster. Brock Purdy is well protected, but I think you're going to need some depth at this position. Knowing that Williams is probably going to retire within the next 2 years. So Lomu's the swing tackle the first year. He's going to fill in wherever he's needed and probably be the heir apparent to the left tackle for the 49ers for the blindside protection for Brock going forward. So Caleb Lomu from Utah, number 24, going to the 49ers. Let's go to the Chargers, another California team. Jim Harbaugh, is also going to want to protect his quarterback. It's almost the same story we've got with the 49ers, that Harbaugh is going to want to protect certainly his franchise QB. Justin Herbert is there, and he's not going anywhere, but he's taken way too many hits this season, loves to air out the ball. The Chargers want to run the ball. Once Marion Hampton comes back, you're going to need somebody who's going to open up those lanes for them as well. And so I'm going to jump a little bit down the draft board on this one too. This is perhaps a stretch for the first round. I don't see a lot of people going this deep down into the lineup, but I'm going to go with Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern. Listed as a left tackle. I think more likely he's going to line up initially as right tackle. Again, Joe Alt is the starting left tackle who could also play on the right-hand side for the Chargers. You got Rashawn Slater there as well. Really good player. They can do a lot of things on this roster with the Chargers, but you've got to have some tackles that are not only injured, that are not injured and are startable to protect your franchise quarterback. And so take a player who's been very reliable, very dependable, can kind of have the flexibility to move around out there. Tiernan has been very reliable all season in college at Northwest. I'm going to have him a little bit of a stretch, some might say, at 25, but I think that's probably the right pick for the Chargers, who aren't afraid to go deep on the big board. 26. Let's look at the New York Giants, who they got this pick from the Browns, who got it from the Jacksonville Jaguars in the trade that they had for Mason Graham last year. So again, the Giants are back on the clock after trading down from number 2 earlier in this draft. I'm going to have them give Jackson Dart another weapon. I think Denzel Boston fits in well here. Kind of a Rome Odunze kind of build, a guy that's a big-bodied receiver, the X receiver that's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him. Not the fastest guy out there, but he's got great hands, and he's going to give you the ability to just kind of throw it in his direction. He's going to catch it, right? And the Giants probably need that. Again, they're in another tough division out there. NFC East is going to score a lot of points, and we're seeing promise. But if you can get Malik Neighbors back and you pair him with another X like Denzel Boston, I think that's a good pairing and the right pick here. Excuse me, for the Giants at number 26. Moving on, back to the Cowboys, back on the clock again. This one from Green Bay at the 27th pick. We're going to go with Avion Terrell on this one. Again, the Cowboys have got a decent secondary. I think that they got burned a lot this year. You're starting to see some signs of improvement. Savon Ravel, who they picked last year, has come in and made some improvements. But again, some injuries kind of plaguing this team. Need a lot of work in the secondary. Still getting lit up with too many passing yards per game. I think that I think that Avion Terrell is the right pick for them here. Coming out of Clemson. He's got his brother A.J. Terrell playing for the Falcons, a good high football IQ player for them in the secondary. Okay, another stretch down the draft board. The Seattle Seahawks, really, really good team, really good defensive-minded team, has got a fantastic defensive line. Also, Sam Darnold has done quite well with the offense, right? Jackson Smith-Njigba has opened up the field. They're scoring a lot of points. I think we're going to turn to the defense on this one again. I'm going to go down here all the way to my University of Texas buddy, Anthony Hill, the linebacker from Texas, a guy that can play right there in the box or in the slot. Really, really good against the run, really, really good in coverage against receivers, covering tight ends, even wide receivers when you need him to there in the slot. He's a guy that can play a bunch of different positions. I see that as being one of the strengths of the Seahawks, who are even further complementing their secondary in recent years. Nick Amenwari came in last year. You've got Devin Witherspoon, the nickel back that's back there in secondary. The Seahawks have a lot of good pieces in place. I think Darnold just needs to calm down in big games. He's a very capable, very good quarterback that you keep saying, oh, he's not going to win the big games. He keeps choking. I think that he's smart enough to figure out what is causing him to cause these issues, and he's still the right guy. They got him for a really good deal for the level of play that he's at right now. And, the Seahawks are being discussed as a potential Super Bowl winning team. If you get a pick right here, let's put it in Anthony Hill, who's a fantastic linebacker. I'm a little surprised to see him so low on the big board because I've seen him at Texas just light up opposing offenses. Back to the Rams again at 29. Brandon Cisse, I'm going to put him, the cornerback from South Carolina, send him to the Rams. The Rams have always kind of wanted a lockdown cornerback, ever since the Jalen Ramsey days. They kind of even talk about bringing him back into the fold again. He's a really good player, but they don't have him anymore. You've seen them kind of skirt around that secondary in recent years. They like to kind of draft later in the draft for players like that. But a lockdown cornerback one, like a Brandon Cisse would be, I think that'd be really good for the Rams. And again, you've already got a Super Bowl contender with this roster. I just think adding the right pieces at the fringe for this would be something that this team wants to do. Broncos on the clock at number 30. My goodness, Sean Payton coming from the Saints, so I loved him with Drew Brees, a great coach, great quarterback-minded coach. He always talks about running his offense through running backs and tight ends and slot receivers. Not going to just air it out every single play. You can see Bo Nix he's able to make big throws down the field, but he's much more comfortable reading that kind of second level for those 10, 15-yard passes out there. And I think that, you did bring in Evan Ingram to be kind of that joker role, if you want to call it. Everyone's talking about the Sean Payton's joker role that he wants out there, but somebody who's kind of able to line up in multiple formations. And I think that he's done well, but not to the expectation that they had for him. And I think that with Kenyon Sadiq sitting there and available at number 30 is going to be too tempting for the Broncos not to draft. This is a guy that can block. He's a physical blocker, good for the running backs. We know that the Broncos like to run the ball. Also a pass-catching tight end that's going to kind of provide some, reliability and be the safety valve for Bo Nix right across the middle of the field. I think he's the right kind of chess piece for the offense that the Broncos are looking for. Maybe not the biggest need, but again, you're drafting at number 30 and you've already got a really good roster in place. You want to find the best player that probably fits kind of the scheme that you like to run. I see Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, the tight end, going to number 30 to the Broncos. And this brings us to our final two picks of the first round. According to the rankings today, the New England Patriots right there at number 31. Who would have expected the Patriots and the other team, which we'll talk about in just a moment, to be in the Super Bowl? If this is how it plays out, you're going to impress a lot of fans seeing, how improved the Patriots have been here in 2025. But to have them available at 36, again, another very, very full roster. I would like to give Drake May one more option. Casey Concepcion from the Aggies. Again, I've watched plenty of Texas A&M football this season. This guy brings it every single play. He's very hard to guard. He's a good punt returner and kick returner. He's kind of one of those guys who can do everything. Again, ranked a little lower than I would put him on the big board just because I've seen his potential out there. And as he gets a little bit more coaching at the pro level, I think he'd be fantastic to complement there with Stephon Diggs and some of the other receivers that you see ascending for the Patriots. But Drake May, again, in the MVP conversation already in his second year in the pros, just a fantastic turnaround story for the Patriots. Casey Concepcion from the Aggies going to New England at number 31. And then last but not least, the final pick of the first round, the Chicago Bears, the Windy City. What a turnaround they have had as well. Ben Johnson, a lot of credit due to him. Ryan Poles, a lot of credit to the rebuild of this Bears roster. They invested in the offensive line to protect Caleb Williams with the expectation that he was going to air it out for 300 or 400 yards a game. Still hasn't happened. Caleb is still an inaccurate passer, still, only, raking up 150 yards a game. He's getting better. He's developing. He's certainly throwing the ball faster than he did the previous year. But the reason that the Bears are winning has been their unexpected success in the run game, right? It's just amazing to see DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai just, pounding the rock against defenses this year. You saw them light up the Eagles the other day. It's amazing to see that the investment they made in their offensive line hasn't yet shown up in passer efficiency from Caleb Williams, but it's just opened up these awesome run lanes for the Bears. Impressive to see him getting it done on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage. And so staring at us right there, excuse me, is the top pick that the Bears can't ignore that falls into the lap at 32. TJ Parker, the edge rusher out of Clemson, again, falls down a little bit because Clemson as a whole has kind of struggled this year. TJ Parker is still a very good player. He can line up as a 3-4 or a 4-3. We know that Dennis Allen came from my Saints. He's now the defensive coordinator for the Bears, likes those big, powerful edge rushers. I'm not sure powerful is the first word I would pick for TJ Parker, but he's certainly capable of lining up in a 4-3. They need a lot of help from Montez Sweat to line up against opposing offensive linemen. So here we are, some final looks at the first round mock. I'll drink one more sip of coffee as you kind of look at those first 32 picks. The big news being Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza, both being the first two selections this year because of two trades right there at the top. So I will post this graphic to the mock draft that I'm posting here for this podcast. Again, a little bit of fun. I hope that anyone who watched this enjoyed it. It's a little bit maybe outside of my comfort zone. I'm typically talking about stocks and investment opportunities to be buying into out there, but I see a lot of similarities between football and stock picking, right? It's all going after value and the needs that you have, whether you're looking for dividend payers or you're looking for growth stocks as a type of investor that you are, or you're looking at, a 4-3 or 3-4 defensive scheme, or a defense or an offense that wants to throw the ball or run the ball. It's kind of a lot of similarities, a little bit of a collision between two of my interests in life of investing and NFL football. So again, my name is Simon Erickson. My typical website that is not doing NFL scouting is 7investing.com. I'd encourage you to go check that out. And please let me know where you think I'm right and where I'm wrong on this mock draft. This is the season that kind of gets the excitement pumping when you see college players that are getting geared up to go pro and really kind of start the next chapter of the journey of their professional careers. And I always love draft day. I always love seeing what's in store when those pro teams go out there and find the right players to make their own rosters even better. So I appreciate you tuning in. Please share your thoughts in the comments and check out 7 Investing. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you in draft day. Hope your team wins this year, and have a great year.